same old clothes. These are my same old shoes. It was the same old me with the same old blues. Oh, then you touched my life just by holding my hand. When I look in the mirror, I see a brand new girl. Oh man, just because of you, because of you, just because of you. Oh, just because of you, just because of you. I've got the same old friends, and they've got the same old sins. I tell them the same old jokes, and I get the same old grins. But now the joke is on you. It happens somehow with you. Every day of my life, I'm as fresh as morning dew. Just because of you. Just because of you. Just because of you. Oh, just because of you, boy. Just because of you. I go to the same old places, and I see the same old faces. I look at the same old sky, see it all with a brand new light. I've got a brand new boy, brand new, and I got me a brand new smile. Since I found you, baby, I got me a brand new style. Just because of you, boy. Just because of you. Oh, I feel good. Just because of you, boy. Just because of you. Oh, I feel good. Just because of you, boy. Hey, just because of you. Yes, I do. Just because of you, boy. Just because of you. Oh, it feels good. Just because of you, boy. Yeah, just because of you. Just because of you, boy. Just because of you.
The lyrics of Brand New Me are kind of significant because when I back to London, I realized, well, I'm kind of in a rut here. I thought, oh my, what would it be like if I was doing this all the time?
45.
Welcome to Fortified. My name is Mista Pierre. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm fine and dandy as usual. Today, I have got part two. I've got another chap. Not another chap. I think the chap's been here before. It is Uncle D. I got Uncle D back in the building for part two of his stories, exploits, dramas, adventures. We loved it all. We had so much great feedback from everybody. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for your DMs. David, welcome back to 45. Thanks for coming along for a second time.
You are most welcome. I'm very excited about doing part 2. Who knows? Part 2 might lead to part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Don't try it. Don't try it.
But I'm also grateful to all the people who responded so well to part 1.
It is.
It's really great.
I'm joking. How many episodes can we have? As long as you got the stories there, you're more than welcome to come back.
I got the stories.
Brilliant. How you been? I know it's only been a short while this time. You've been back to LA and back again here in the middle of winter. It's rainy and overcast.
True.
How you feeling?
I'm good because I just celebrated a birthday. Which is why I thought it was great that you could put in a brand new me, because that is how I feel.
Listen.
On my birthday just gone.
Your birthday bonanza. Happy birthday, sir, on behalf of me, the crew at 45 and all the listeners out there. Listen, you're an upstanding gentleman. Many happy returns. May you have many more.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I intend to. And more. I mean.
Good. Well, look, let's start the podcast off from where we left off. So we had all your wonderful stories and, you know, all the parties you went to, all the work you got Nina Simone, and you started touching on Earth, Wind and Fire and living in New York. Talk to me about roughly around 27 things start to change for you. Yeah. Do you want to pick it up from there, the brand new you at 27?
Well, yeah, what it was is so that the point that we're referring to, which is, I guess, around the summer of 1974, is when I had a flatmate or roommate, depending on which country you're in, named Gary. And Gary and I, we're flatmates in a flat in Tottenham, actually. And he went on holiday, and ostensibly he was on holiday, but he ended up staying in New York. And he had an aunt there. And anyway, the bottom line is he invited me to come to New York in October of 1974 on holiday. And I'd never been to America. Of course, I knew many people from America, and but the idea of going was like, wow, okay. And so I accepted his invitation, and I arrived, and I stayed with him. And the one thing I can is really funny, I'm remembering when I got off the plane, Gary was a little late reaching the airport. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I've never been to America.
I'm not saying a word.
It was freaking out a little bit. But anyway, so he arrived, and then he said, well, let's go. And we went back to his place. He said, well, let's get have a shower and all that. And remember, I've just gotten off a flight, and back then flying from London to New York was not as it took a little longer than it does now, shall we say.
Wow.
So I was zonked out in different time zones. Come on, let's go. So if we go to a party, it's a Saturday night, we go to a party.
That's right.
I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? So that was my introduction to
Excellent.
New York.
So two things
City.
there.
Yes.
Two things.
Yes.
Prior to you going to New York, were you excited by where all this music was coming from? America, this big country, where all this great music was. There must have been some sort of mystery, excitement, or
And the person the person who founded and created Blues and Soul, John Abbey, was the editor and the founder of it. He'd been to America many times because he would go to America to do interviews with people.
Right.
So he could, to the magazine. We did stuff with people in England too, but he went to America a lot, so he'd come back and tell stories about what it was like there. And so I had an idea of what it was.
Yeah.
So but being there was a whole different experience. So and just to kind of encapsulate it as best we can. So the first week I was there, I hated it. I couldn't stand it because it was dirty.
Where were you staying?
I was in Brooklyn.
Were you in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Well, Brooklyn wasn't horrible, but the city. Well,
whereabouts in Brooklyn? Do you know where you were working?
No, I don't remember.
Can't remember.
No.
Big up to Brooklyn, all the Flatbush crew.
Hey,
go on.
Hey.
Brooklyn's in the house.
Brooklyn in the house.
Brooklyn's in the house. Copmaster DC. Karen, anyway.
Good. So I stayed with Gary, and then we went to. So first week it was just why I didn't like it. It wasn't so much Brooklyn. It was just that I thought the city was dirty.
Yep.
People were rude. I mean, the whole city was like, why are people calling this so wonderful? The second week, so I was there for about 2 weeks. And the second week, everything changed. Towards the end of the first week, it started to change because I got to, even though I was on holiday, I got to some interviews with people. Right. Which even though I wasn't there to do that, I thought, well, John Abbey said, well, you do some interviews out there. I chose 3 artists. Group LaBelle.
As in Patti LaBelle?
That's Patti LaBelle, Nona Hendrix, and Sarah Dash. And they had just had a big hit. They were having their first big, massive hit as the group LaBelle with Lady Marmalade.
Hey, sister, go, sister, soul.
then the other one then I chose to Ashford and Simpson because I'd already been listening to the first Ashford and Simpson album, and I of course was very familiar with them as songwriters and producers.
Yeah, producers
at
as well,
Motown,
yeah.
of course, and so I got to, for the first time ever in my whole life, I think, I got to be in the home of anyone who was a recording artist of note. So I went to their townhouse in Midtown Manhattan and did an interview.
Ashford and Simpson.
Ashford and Simpson. Yes, them. And I was so like, wow, I just couldn't even get my head around that I was sitting in their house.
That is so mad.
And at the time, Valerie was pregnant with her first child. And she wasn't very communicative, which I found out later was generally how she was anyway. But she was a little bit less communicative because she, I guess, Nick didn't love talking, let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So we get to the interview. It's a little story. I just remembering this story. So the interview's over, and I said, thank you so much. I was writing notes. I did not tape record.
I was about to say, there's no tape record. It's all shorthand, right?
Just all shorthand. It wasn't, just making notes on a piece of paper. So then so Valerie left one night, and she said, I need to get a taxi. So I said, let me help you get a taxi. Because she was, pregnant, obviously pregnant.
Yeah.
And as we got to the corner of the street, I said, you don't like doing interviews much, do you? And this is very bold of me. I mean, I don't know.
We know from our previous episode that you're quite, you're shy, but you're kind of brazen as well.
Well, it can be.
It's good.
So I said, she said, no, I don't. I said, well, okay. I said, okay, well, that was it. She was honest about it. She said, I don't really like it. And so I got help to get in the taxi, and that was that. And then, as it turned out, I mean, over the years that followed, I did many, many more interviews with Nick and Val. And we'll jump to a little bit about that later because one of the piece of music we're going to be playing was produced by them, but we'll hold off for a moment talking about that.
Did they produce California Soul as well?
Well, they wrote the song.
They wrote the song, right?
And the song was actually first recorded, a piece of minutiae for all the listeners. Some might know this already. The very first person to record California Soul was actually Nick Ashford as a solo recording. Very rare, very hard to find.
Yeah.
And he actually forgot he did it because when I asked him and Val years and later, I said, the success of California Soul, Marlena Shaw, the late Marlena, much missed Marlena Shaw. And they had a little argument about it in front of me. She said, I said, did you know you did it first? And they said, no, I didn't know that. And Valerie said, yes, you did. Yes. No, I don't remember that. So he goes, no, argument. They're having a dispute.
Difference of opinion.
Different opinion. And then she said, yes, you did. You did it as a single or whatever. Anyway, so the bottom line, he fessed up. He didn't remember his version of it. So that's who did California Soul first. Anyway,
nice.
The third artist, so did LaBelle, Nick and Val, and Millie Jackson.
No kissy on the belly button and stopping. Just get on down and part out.
Which would be a whole episode unto itself. And maybe when we do part 3, 4, 10, we will talk about Miss Millie. So that was New York. And then the thing that capped it all off for me being there was I went to Radio City Music Hall.
Nice.
Because the Atlantic Records publicity person, Barbara Harris, she had found out how much of an Aretha fan I was. And so she said, I can get you tickets. So I couldn't imagine. So here I am at Radio City Music Hall during this first visit seeing Aretha Franklin and the opening artists were Blue Magic.
So hold on, wait a second. This is 1975?
This is 1974.
1974? Wow.
On this first holiday.
And what album was she promoting? What was she singing?
The album had just come out then, was called Let Me In Your Life.
Nice.
And so it's kind of interesting that we picked Aretha to begin this show.
Yeah.
Because, of course, that's the first time I saw her on her home soil, so to speak. And it was an amazing show. And the other thing to say about it is so reflecting on why Brand New Me, because I went back to England.
Yeah.
After this first week of horribleness and second week of absolute amazing experiences, I was like, well, you know what? I need to move. I need to just go.
That's it.
I need to go.
New York bit you.
Yes.
New York bit you.
Yes,
Good.
it did. And so I was like, well, I took a bite of the apple, and it took a bite of me.
Yep,
Yeah, you got
yep.
Big Apple.
No,
Hey,
yeah.
whatever.
Did you get to meet Aretha Franklin at this point yet? Or was
No,
that still
not.
come?
I had met her before, when she came to London. Yeah,
Right,
but
nice.
not other than that.
Okay,
I met her.
okay.
I did interviews with her on the phone,
Right.
for Blues and Soul during the time in between.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And on that particular occasion, at Radio City Music Hall, I didn't get to meet her. But
Right.
I did, yeah, sort of show. But the thing I was going to say is that. Why the lyrics of Brand New Me are kind of significant, because when I went back to London, I realized, well, I'm kind of in a rut here. I mean, I can't, nothing wrong with my friends. I love them, but they're the same old friends.
Things got stale, right?
Yeah, and socially, and I'm like, well, okay, it's time for I got to mix it up a little bit somehow.
Yeah.
And having done those interviews, I thought, oh my, what would it be like if I was doing this all the time? So I went to see John Abbey, the editor of Blues and Soul, and I said, I really want to go back to America. And he said, well, I would prefer you stay here. You're much more used to us here, blah, blah, blah. Well, I bought a ticket. I just went and bought a ticket. I told my family. They were like, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I want to write. I just want to write. And at that point, I didn't have a gig. I mean, John hadn't said yes. And I said, well, can I write? He said, well, no, I'm used to me here. 3 weeks before I left, he called me into his office. He said, you bought your ticket, didn't you? I said, yes, I'm going. I'm really leaving. I'm really leaving.
Decision's been made.
And he said, well, I tell you what, let's try 3 months. If you can produce enough work in those 3 months for me to justify paying you for those 3 months, then we'll revisit it at that point. And so off I went on February the 8th, 1975.
Now, before we jump there, what happened with the record shop and all that sort of stuff? In our previous episode, you talked about the record shop.
Oh yeah, that was long after.
That you moved on from that, and then
well, yeah, because I was working after Soul City stopped being in existence. I was working for Contempo, which is the parent organization or the company that owned Contempo.
Oh, not Cool Tempo.
No, not Cool Tempo. Contempo was a company that owned Blues and Soul. Was actually John's company,
right?
And so under the wing of Contempo was Blues and Soul magazine, and of course we had Contempo Records at one point, label, and then he would bring over artists from America. They did promotional,
right?
They did promotions, like to bring artists over like Al Green, show with Al Green and Bloodstone. Brought over Roberta Flack for the first time. So we do shows in England. So that was also part of the Contempo world. And, of course, I had the record shop, which is the part that was quite well known to people in London. On Saturdays, people would trudge up the long and winding staircase to the office of Contempo, where they would be greeted by moi and others selling the imports, which you got the night before. So Contempo was a hot spot, really it was.
Yeah.
And I remember now, I think back to some of the people who are now quite well known in British life and beyond, like Jazzy B was one of our customers. A few of the DJs, I think I'm trying to remember who else.
I've got to get him on the show, actually.
All kinds of peeps came up.
Yeah, nice.
But anyway, so that's Contempo.
So February 8th, 1975, a week before your birthday, let's say.
That's right.
You were in New York City?
I was. And
all right.
Gary had moved from Brooklyn and he was living in the East Village.
Nice.
Well, it wasn't.
It
was kind of dumpy. I mean, East Village was not like... It was kind of like...
So you're talking about Lower East, right?
Yeah, exactly. Lower East.
Some good record shops there now, though.
Well, there might be, but back then it was like rough.
Yeah.
So I'm in there, and so Gary met me at the airport on February 8th, took me back to the new place he was in, and kind of spent the week getting acclimatized to being there. And on the night of, and the next February 15th, next Saturday was my birthday. So February 14th, which is called Valentine's Day, Valentine's night, Gary went out somewhere and he didn't come back that night.
He's getting his freak on.
Well, whatever he was getting on, it wasn't making sure that I woke up in a lovely place for my birthday. So I woke up on February 15th by myself. I don't think I even had keys, so I couldn't have gone anywhere till he got back, in the apartment by myself, no one around me. My February 15th birthday. I think I did place a call to my parents in England to say hello, but it probably cost a fortune. Back then, you couldn't just call somebody, call to the operator. Anyway, the bottom line, it was a horrible birthday. Horrible. Imagine waking up. You're in a new country, you know, and I was, how old was I? Let's see, 75, do some math here quick. Yeah, I was actually 27 on that birthday.
Damn.
So here I am and feeling lonely and alone, and Gary finally...
It's quite harsh having a birthday straight after Valentine's Day.
Yeah, well, that part's not so much a problem. The problem more that you kind of show up when you're in that particular birthday. Yeah. So Gary shows up at some point in the day. Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't really keeping track. I said, it's my birthday. Oh, yeah. I don't know why I'm after that. Probably went to eat something, do something. I don't know. So it was a horrible beginning of a birthday. But it did not in any way mar my experience of America. I said, no. I'll have my next birthday. It'll be wonderful. Yeah. And we'll get to my next birthday on the next show. It was a year later, and it was not so wonderful either. It was a party, and we won't talk about that on the air.
Exactly. It's a family show.
Jolly good. Your family
show.
Tell
us how you became this international correspondent and part of the Black Press.
Well, here's what it is. When I first got to New York, again, I was on a 3-month trial basis, as John said, see how it goes. And then, his mandate was to do as many interviews as you can, just interview everybody. Yeah. I mean, new artists, everyone has a new record out. He said, because that's how I can justify paying you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I began through a couple of people who were already in New York, helped me to meet some of the record company executives, the publicists, primarily the publicists. Mm-hmm. And at that time, major record companies the bigger record companies had what they call black music departments or divisions. Yep. And so I was really considered, even though I was international, because it was blues and soul, writing for a British magazine, I was still kind of considered part of the black music press or the black press because that's how they did it.
No, these departments, I believe, I think we were talking about this before, Harvard did a study on the black populace and the increasing spending power they were having. Was that the impetus for these subdivisions or areas to be creators on each of these record labels?
Yes. And the short answer is yes, because what had become apparent is in the early 70s, I think it was the early 70s, there was an awareness that that the major companies, smaller companies would cater more for the R&B soul world, so to speak, but major companies didn't really have, they weren't necessarily that involved with what we would call R&B or black music at the time, and they realized they were missing out.
Was it selling quite a lot?
Well, I mean, it was selling, but I mean, the major companies weren't really in it, you know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, Atlantic probably was about the own...
Motown?
Well, Motown, we exclude Motown because Motown was a black-owned company. Yeah.
I was thinking like Stax, they were
Stax and Motown would have been considered because they were independent companies. They weren't owned by, they weren't like a CBS or a Warner's or those main ones would have been, CBS, Warner Brothers,
Atlantic,
but Atlantic was already pretty much into the world of R&B. But at one point it became Warner Brothers, Elektra, Atlantic became one company. Yeah. But the point I'm making is that some of those so if you think of We Are as a company, apart from the Atlantic part, they weren't very heavily invested in the world of R&B. The other one was Capitol Records. Capitol Records was actually one of the first companies to initiate having a black music division. And so there was an awareness that they were missing out. And if you're a corporation, you want every dollar you can get.
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So there had been a study done by Harvard University looking at the spending habits, I think, of the African American population, and how this was an opportunity that was not being really capitalized on by the companies.
So this is post.
This is before I got there.
Yeah, is this post Martin Luther King civil rights
No.
and pre black exploitation era?
Post, yes, post.
Yeah, it was post. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, so we're talking about the early 70s,
Yeah.
and then I think one of the first most important deals in that time was when Clive Davis at CBS Records did a deal with the up and coming producers, songwriters, Gamble and Huff, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, who were just starting. And actually, so CBS helped launch Philadelphia International Records as a label.
That Philly sound.
And that was really a big deal, because there's a major corporation investing in a black-owned company, and really the sound. I mean, you think about those early hits. Your Backstabbers was the first hit.
Can you, for our listeners, can you tell us who Gamble and Huff were?
Yeah, Gamble
and what songs they produced, famous ones that they would know?
So prior to starting their own company, so to speak, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff and Tom Bell, who was part of the same Philadelphia...
Jamaican, isn't he?
Well, he was, yes, of Jamaican origin.
Yep.
Yes. They started out in Philadelphia. They weren't all working together at the same time early on.
Yep.
And Gamble and Huff's first success came with I'm going to think about this for a second. Well, here's what I know. Tom Bell's first success was with the Delphonics.
Right.
And Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff started producing artists actually for Atlantic. They did some recording on Wilson Pickett.
Yep.
The big hit one. They had a hit called Engine
Number 9.
Yeah.
Engine number 9 on the New York Transit line. If my train goes off the track, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
And then, so they were independent producers. Apart from Atlantic, I think they did some things with other companies, but I remember particularly their contributions to Atlantic. They recorded Dusty Springfield.
Wow.
Which, they did an album with the group LaBelle and Laura Nyro, singer-songwriter Laura Nyro, which was a big success. So they were starting to develop a sound.
Yep.
And so those are some of the earliest hits. And then with Tom Bell, of course, then he started working with this after the Delphonics, with things like Did Not Blow Your Mind This Time. Then comes the Stylistics. So the Stylistics is a big group for Tom Bell.
Yeah.
So that's really and then after that, the Spinners. So Gamble and Huff were
and they did OJs and stuff like that.
All the same around the same time. All around the same time.
Yeah.
72, 71, 72.
Last geeky question. The Spinners became the Detroit Spinners afterwards, did they? Am I right in saying that? Or two different people?
The Detroit Spinners were from Detroit, but they were only called the Detroit Spinners in England because there was already a folk group called the Spinners.
Right.
So in order to distinguish between the Spinners and the American Spinners and the folk group singers, the folk singers in Britain, they had to call themselves the Detroit Spinners,
so
only from Britain.
Right.
So all the albums,
working my way.
But there you go. That's later. By then they were. I don't know. They probably were still called the Detroit Spinners up to some point. Yeah.
Okay. So go on. So you're saying about Gamble and Huff. So
So no, it's all right. It's all conversation. And then at that point, as I said, they did the deal with CBS, and Philadelphia International became a major player.
Yep.
In the whole world of R&B, competing then with Motown, with Stax, and then you've also got, I'm forgetting, not that we should forget, Holland Doja Holland, with the Invictus and Hot Wax labels in Detroit. So these were all examples of where the R&B artists and labels were doing well. So then along comes so CBS with Philadelphia International, and Capitol Records had already started to get into it too. They began with Tavares, followed by Natalie Cole. This all comes in 74, 75. So they were all building rosters, and so therefore to go to where we were speaking about me showing up. So I was like a boon to them. Here I am, this guy from Britain. I had knowledge. I knew what I was doing. Well, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew about the music. And I show up, and they're like, wow. And give them the mandate was to interview everybody. I was like such a gift to them. Like, oh, well, come on. Excuse me. Come on in.
Yeah. Did you meet people that you didn't know much about, so you had to freestyle some of the interviews as well? Or did you have prior knowledge of most of the people you interviewed?
If there were people I didn't know, and of course, let me say this: there were a lot of new artists. A lot of new artists. So a lot of times, the record company will give you a bio to read, so you knew who. Biogs, but that's what you read to find out about them. And of course, it would give me the music to listen to a lot of times before I did the interview, so I could get some familiarity with them. But a lot of them had some records out. I'm trying to think who were there were some artists during the year of 75 that I interviewed who had just literally began their recording careers. Like one of them was Randy Crawford, 75.
Nice.
Or she's 76. But I know there were a lot of people that were just beginning their recording careers. So yeah, and then there was all the ones that I'd already been around. So I did interviews in 75. I got to do a lot. I mean, it was literally everybody, like Al Green, and then other artists like First Choice that I've been listening to, Gloria Gaynor. So a lot of the artists who were really beginning their careers, as I say, was the established ones. So yeah, it was a mix up of different of new artists, ones I had always wanted to hear and see, or I wanted to interview.
How was that for you? Was it exciting?
Oh man, so, listen, thinking about the world. Man, come on now. When I was in London, prior to making that move, so to speak, thank you, Shalimar. Name check. So. I'm a walking list of song titles.
Go on.
Anyway, prior to that, my everyday life, as I said, it was okay. There wasn't nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't fulfilling. And so I had to go to work every day. I wasn't bad. I worked in the offices of Contempo, and then I would, work every day because part of the office was a record shop. Then I worked in the mail order.
Let me get you straight. You're in England now.
Yeah, that was in England prior to. So I'm saying, comparing that to how life was when I got to America, where all I was doing was writing. And going to shows and getting free records. I mean, the first time I started getting like promo LPs, I'm like,
it's great, isn't it? It's great, isn't it?
I mean,
You've arrived.
I couldn't get over it, man.
When you get your first promos, you've made it. Woo.
And then everyone would put me on the mailing list.
Yeah.
And then they'd have showcases and parties. And I mean, and I was, really, and I just turned 27, as we said. And, the idea of having this it was like a dream life.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. I don't know that I really, at the time, I mean, I don't know if when you say feet touched the ground, I mean, I don't even, it was so like outside.
Surreal.
I imagined. I didn't know it was going to be like that. Good. I mean, it was like stepping into, it was like, it was like stepping out into a world and not knowing how it was going to be. And I really have to say now, and I've done this many times subsequently, to thank John Abbey, because really...
Who's John Abbey?
The guy who started the magazine, Blues and Soul, who was the one who said, "Go. All right, I don't want you to leave, but if you're going to go, but you have to do a lot of work."
Big up to John Abbey for that.
Yeah, really, still. And I've spoken to him. He's still around, thankfully. He's a grandfather.
Nice.
He lives in Atlanta. He still manages and tours... does tours with the 3 Degrees. He's been managing for a long, long time.
Nice.
And, I always tell him, thank you so much, because if you had not finally said yes, I might have had a completely different life.
Look at you with your humble self expressing gratitude like that, respect. That's as I said, you're a trailblazer in that sort of way, and the fact that you're still humble and expressing gratitude, that's really, really good for the future and for other people to see as well. So respect for that. Yeah. So you're doing all these shows, etc., etc., etc. What happened?
Well, one thing I can tell you what was hilarious is, as part of what happened was, when I would meet some of the people who were the publicists, they didn't know what to make of me. because I had a huge amount of curly hair. I mean, it wasn't just a little piece of curly hair. I mean, I had a massive mop of hair, not mop. I love curly hair, all right?
All right.
And people couldn't, it was so curly, and it was my hair. I didn't have it permed or done. That was my natural hair. So anyway, I was kind of,
out there.
I was out there, man. I've still got photographs from that time period. So when the publicist first met me, before I spoke, if someone met me for the first time and they were being introduced to me, they assumed, as I later found out, that I must have been a very light-skinned Puerto Rican person.
Mm-hmm.
Or, as they use different term here, he would have said mixed race, and they would have said a biracial, however term they use. But the point being, because of my hair and because of how I dressed, and although my skin was pale, that didn't necessarily compute that I could be what I really was, which is a Brit. Mm-hmm. So when I would speak, sometimes they do a double take, where are you from?
Yeah.
I'm British. And later on, publicists, years later, tell me, well, we couldn't make you out. We're like, what? Where's he from?
Excellent.
And then I astounded them with all my knowledge of the music.
You know, I was speaking to Cyril Henry about that and the British accent and how it works when you live in America. It just stuns people because of the association with that accent, whether it be post-colonial, pre-colonial, whatever. The association that people have with that accent, especially when in America, can get you in and out of trouble, but it's also quite interesting when people just turn around and react.
Did it get you in trouble?
No. Out of trouble, more like.
Oh, okay.
That's the answer I'm sticking to.
Well, it got me in trouble sometime, but we ain't going. This is a family show.
It's a
family show. We can't talk about those things on the air. Well,
look,
we could, but anyway.
Let's play your first song.
Yes.
It's called Baby Hang Up the Phone by Carl Graves.
Yes.
And let's hear the story behind that.
I
that song is a song that came out, I think, in the summer, or it must have been the autumn of 1974.
Yeah.
During the time period when I was still in London, living in England, and going through the, whole thing of like, oh, this is like, I need to change something.
Yep.
I'm like, I need to change. And at the time, I think the actual song itself was inspired by a romantic situation I was in, where whoever the object of my affection was, or the object of my desire, was
Hang
not
on.
as easy to reach on the phone.
Wait, is this in America or over
in
here?
England.
Uh-huh.
And
Straddling.
And so the song, just when I hear it,
Yep.
it still affects me the same way. I just get like really in this kind of melancholy, wistful kind of state. It's like a beautiful recording. And just to say that, one of the most amazing aspects of me having then gone to America is I got to speak to Carl Graves at one point, and to talk about the record, which, funnily enough, was not on his album. He had one album out on A&M Records, and for some reason the single was not on the album. But nonetheless,
Was it a big hit?
It was not a big hit. It was an R&B hit. It wasn't a big crossover. It did okay. Yeah. But man, that song, because it reminds me of my last time, my last time period in London, and then going to New York and living the life.
Is this post Franklin?
Oh yeah, man! Franklin boyfriend from 1967. Oh yeah. Oh yes, there was a few after that.
Okay. So the relevance of that song, was that when you were over in America or
it was
England?
Relevance was when I was in England, and then what became so amazing again is that when I was in America, after I got to begin to live there, is I got to speak with Carl Graves. I mean, the idea of being able to speak to someone whose music had really kind of, this wasn't like somebody who had loads of hits, but who had just like really touched me. The idea of this guy, this song that had like been, it's still now, I can hear that song and go, it just, whatever it is.
What's your trick for not being overawed and remain professional in interviewing to get the salient points out of what you need to get the interview successful without being sort of wowed? How do you sort of like...
Well, I think at that time, everything was wow.
Yeah.
At that time, because I wasn't... This is not what I had been doing for a living. I did interview... Just to be clear, I had been doing some interviews in London for Blues and Soul as part of my job. It was part of my job. I didn't get a bit extra to do that. And I did some great interviews in London with people. I mean, I must say I never met anybody.
Yeah.
But it wasn't... I was just really beginning that whole journey. And so I think that part of the thing of not being awed by meeting people, I mean, I was. I mean, I can't say that I was never like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting this person whose music meant so much to me, or has meant so much to me. But it was more that the one thing that I seem to say, I would say I brought to the interviews I did, was in most cases a lot of knowledge of the actual recording artist's history. And that distinguished me from a lot of my colleagues in America.
So you had enough of the backstory.
And I also knew the music from listening to it in England. Yeah. And for a lot of people, at that time, you have to create some context for you. I mean, for people in America the people we thought were special, that was just everyday thing for them. I mean, there were every city in America had an R&B radio station. Yeah. Here, that didn't even exist. No. We had clubs. We had people playing stuff in clubs. But there was no R&B stations, really. Yeah. So you got to think that it wasn't part of the culture here, even though there were people who loved the music. But in America, every time you turn around, there's a radio station, there's a record shop. I remember the first time I went to Harlem, and there were record shops, like we did with Soul City in Britain, but record shops all over the place. They only sold R&B and soul and gospel. So it's part of the everydayness of life. So it wasn't as special as it was for me. and for the people who were reading about it in London, because I was writing for a British magazine. And most of those artists had never been to England. Many of them had never been there. They were just names on record.
So in parallel then, it wasn't like living in the UK. How did you make the adjustment socially to live in America? Because for me, like you, I just got thrown in there and I just enjoyed it. But how was it for you? Because obviously you had your social network that you developed in the UK. And though you parked those or those relationships, evolved or didn't, and it always happens when you meet new friends and you take another stage in your life. So how did you develop your social network outside of work going forward? How did you manage to replicate that in New York?
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, a lot of my social network did come out of my work.
Yep.
Because they'd had welcomes to host parties. They'd take a coach, you go on a coach to a concert with all the other press people. Outside of that, I think probably the person who was most responsible for that was my friend Gary, because he was still living in America. He, of course, that by then I had got my own place.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, I only stayed with him at the very first few weeks.
Oh, okay.
And then Blues and Soul had an office in New York for a photographer. There was a photographer who had a studio in New York. That was the Blues and Soul office, and I used to sleep on the sofa because there was no bedroom.
Fair enough. Whereabouts was that?
That was in Midtown Manhattan.
Nice.
And it was on. It was in a famous building called the Westerly. And the Westerly was on 54th and 8th Avenue.
Yep.
And the actual building was called the Westerly, like I said, and it had a little bit of a reputation because some of the ladies of the night used to do their purloined their wares in the building. Okay. Oh, it's good, purloined. Oh, listen to me. Getting all wordy on you.
Purloined for the purveyors.
Yes, purloined for the purveyors. But what was so funny is around the corner was a police station. So the police station, they turned a blind eye or something.
Yeah, maybe,
but anyway,
maybe they were the most popular customers.
Well, they might have been. Who knows?
You know what I mean?
But anyway, so that was one of the things about the Westerly. It was a nice building, though.
Yeah.
It had a doorman. I can't remember his name now. A doorman.
Nice.
So living it up, I was.
So you're just up from Hell's Kitchen?
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, round the corner was. Well, that was on 9th.
Second.
Yeah. Well, yes, and 9th Avenue.
Yeah, 9th. Yeah.
But anyway, so and I will tell. I do remember one thing very distinct about that building too. Is I did the first interview I ever did with Gloria Gaynor.
Yep.
Was in that building because her manager lived there.
Yep.
And I would have to check which it was. I think it was. Yeah, it was in 75 because I wasn't. It was in the first few months, and then I got my own. John Abbey decided, well, okay, let's get you your own place in the building. Yep. So he told the photographer, "I'm sorry, we can't use this anymore because he still did photography for us, but it was really like we need a place for David to stay." And after I was proving that I could, justify being there, so I got a blue in that same building. I got my flat in the Westerly, and that was the Blues and Soul office. And so, what I was going to say, so Gary, even though Gary and I weren't living together, we were still socializing. Yep. And Gary would go take me to clubs, bars, all over the place. Yep. And I was meeting this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm. What's on this? Anyway, carry on. Yeah, go on. Yep.
I shouldn't say this, that, and the other. I was making new friends.
Yes.
I was making new friends, which actually would be a good lead-in to on the records we're going to play.
Oh, I see.
Because it leads into is a story of one of the people I met in New York as part of my socializing, getting to know people. Mm-hmm. And so in a sense, it was work-related because this is a group called Revelation, and they were a quartet. And I first heard them on that first visit in October of 74. Yep. There was a showcase for them. Atlantic Records had a showcase. They had just signed to RSO Records, which was the label best known for the Bee Gees and so forth.
Saturday Night Fever albums on
all
there.
That.
Yep.
But anyway, so I'd seen them at the showcase, and I thought they were incredible. And the background of the Revelation was they were all from a much bigger group called the New York Community Choir. Massively well-known group.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when I got to New York, did an interview with Revelation for their first album, and during the course of it, I asked if anyone could take me to a church, because I'd never been to what I called a black gospel church, because I would no reason I would go to one in England, and there weren't that many of them back then in England at all. There were a few, but it wasn't like a lot. And so one of the group members, Arthur Freeman, he said, "Yeah, no problem." He said, "Let me know which Sunday you want to go." So
you go to Harlem one.
It was in Harlem.
Yep.
Yep. It was on Lenox Avenue.
All right.
I think it was Lenox. I might get the cross street wrong. It was either 115th or what. Anyway, it was in Harlem.
Yeah.
And so Arthur said, well, I'll tell you where to go, because he was in the choir, so he couldn't come and meet me.
Yeah.
So, and that was my first experience of being in what I said a black gospel church.
Yeah.
I called it that because I didn't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, wow. I can't even begin to tell you what it was like. So it's perfect.
Of course I can.
Yeah. And so Arthur also we became friends. I mean, really. And he was one of my first real friends in New York. Like outside of the work environment. And when we went to see a couple of shows together, we really got to be real friends. And I really so appreciated beginning to develop friendships.
Now, did you go to see this choir on a Sunday?
Not the New York Community Choir, no. But the choir he sang in was a choir. I'm sure some of the people were in that choir.
Yeah.
But yes, at some point I did. In fact, New York Community Choir went on to record as a group.
Yeah.
And they recorded for RCA Records, and they had, I think the record, it was probably, we have to look at the date. That was not too far after the Revelations. It was probably about 77.
Yeah.
And then a massive hit with a song called Make Every Day Count. I mean, I got to know other members of the choir.
Yeah. Nice.
It was just a really, I mean, those are my first real friends in New York. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's play Revelation, Get Ready for This.
Yeah, because that's really what it was. Get ready for this. Like this. When I got to church, I mean, Arthur should have said to me, get ready for this.
Okay, let's do it.
Thing to say about that is it was they did a whole album, and it was recorded, I think most of it, if not all of it, maybe not all of it, most of it was recorded in Philadelphia at Sigma Sound Studios, which of course is this famous studio in Philadelphia where all the big hits came from. Yeah. And a lot of the musicians on the record were members of the MFSB group of musicians.
Yeah.
They were on all the Philly hits, but it wasn't produced by Gamble and Huff. But it was in there. I remember I went to one of the sessions. I didn't go for the whole album, but I remember going to one of the sessions to Philadelphia. They were just amazing group because they were using those gospel harmonies
Yeah.
and just incredible. But I would say the members of the group, at least other than Arthur, who we really became friends, like I said.
Nice.
So the other members of the group are Benny Diggs, who's still very much around and has made an incredible contribution to not just the gospel, to R&B music. He's quite and he's still considered an important part of the whole world of music of that time and beyond.
Yeah.
And then Arnold McCullough, who has subsequently become a solo recording artist over years, spent many years on the road with James Taylor.
Nice.
And just established
Jazz group, isn't James Taylor Quartet and stuff?
no, the other James Taylor, the How Sweet It Is, the what's it? Oh, his big hit. Oh my God, what James Taylor? Everything.
We got you.
Oh no, hold on. No, he covered How Sweet It Is, but that's not the song. James Taylor, Fire and Rain.
Yeah,
all of
well
them.
done.
Yes, James Taylor. So he was on the road a lot with James Taylor, and then he started his own solo career. And Arnold and I stayed in touch. We haven't been in touch for a while, but he established his own career. And then the other person who, unfortunately, Arthur is deceased, and so is my dear friend Philip Ballou, who's the other person in that group. And Philip became one of the primary background vocalists for Luther Vandross. He also did do some background work with Arnold, with James Taylor. But a lot of Philip's recordings and name checks, I should say, would be found on his productions by Luther.
Yep.
On Aretha, Dion, Luther's own records. He went on the road with Luther. He was one of his touring background singers, and just an incredible singer. And so the other thing about Philip is we actually did work together. We did I helped work with him on creating a demo for him as a solo artist. Unfortunately, we were not able to get a deal for him, but as life turns out, man, in the way that you can never really think how it's all going to turn out, his first demo recordings are now available as fully finished recordings on. You can find them because I had them digitally remastered and available.
Nice.
And so we credited me, Philip, and John Simmons, who was the other producer on it, as the producers and songwriters. And so it's
Well done,
amazing. I
man.
never
Respect for
thought
that.
that was all going to happen, but there you go.
Excellent.
So that's my first people I socialized with.
So that was your first network, your inner network of people.
Yeah.
Nice. That was amazing. And did you feel like settled in New York now once you had a good set of friends?
I would say that probably by the summer, I felt like I had made friends. And then, of course, through Gary, I made friends with some of his friends that became my friends, too. There was one guy I'll never forget. So, this story is so funny. I've just reminded myself of it. One of Gary's friends was a guy called Ron Simmons, who's not related to John Simmons, so I mentioned recently, just a moment ago. And, so it was John, and there was a guy called James, and all the friends of Gary, right? And when Ron first met me, he thought I was very British, which I was, because I spoke with a very British accent.
Did you lay it on thick?
Well, no, I didn't. That's just how I spoke. I didn't have any of the Americanisms that crept into my speaking over time. But anyway, he thought, he got the impression I was very kind of prim and proper. He did. I don't know why. I guess maybe he associated people from Britain as being prim and proper.
Are you not prim and proper then, David?
Anyway, so he showed up at my flat one, because I said I had my own place.
Yeah.
And he showed up at my flat one Saturday night. It was Saturday night, I think so. And he says, rang the doorbell and blah, blah, blah. So he said, listen, he said, I'm taking you out to a club. I said, oh, okay. He said, because I think you need to loosen up. I'm like, okay. And so that, because he had this impression of me of being like because he didn't know all about my years of boogieing in London. He wouldn't know that.
Slackness.
Well, because of hush. So anyway, you see, this is what happens when you do interview with people who know too much about your life. Anyway, so the point, because I hadn't really gone anywhere. I mean, I went out with Gary and hang out like that, but I hadn't really gone out, And so Ron wanted this. He said, "I'm going to take you out, and have you loosen up." And I guess he wasn't prepared. He wasn't prepared.
He wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready for this.
Oh Lord, I don't think I am. Go on.
Or that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he so that was.
Whoa.
Well, no. The point I'm making. The point is, we went to a club.
Well, what kind of club was this, though?
A dance club. What kind of club?
Was it ambiguous? Not gay, not straight, just.
Oh
club.
yeah, no club, gay club.
See, that's
Yeah,
that's kind of important. So how did he?
Yeah.
Whoa! Pull over. Hold on.
Yes. Don't get into everybody's business now. Come on now.
No.
No.
Bite-sized chunks. How did he know your business? How did he know you were gay? A and B. Which club was it? What happened that night? Just a little bit of like.
Okay. How did he know I was gay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gary, who was my flatmate in London and was then my flatmate initially in New York and was my friend, my only real social friend. Mm-hmm. He would have defined himself now as fluid.
Yep.
That was not the term we used back then.
Yep.
And remember I told you of the first party I went to when I got off the plane?
Yep.
Well, that was a full-on gay party.
Okay.
Full on. And I was one of the only people, I think I might have one of two people with a lighter shade of pale.
Right.
But the hair helped.
Okay, right. Okay.
So anyway, so that was it. And so Ron took, I think, I'm not 100% sure, he took me to a club called Better Days.
Okay.
Better Days was a gay disco.
Yeah.
And it was on 49th Street and 8th Avenue.
Yeah.
48th or 49th.
Now, did this place precede
Paradise Garage?
Correct.
Yes, by a few years. Yeah.
Cool.
A few years.
Just for context.
Yeah, and it might have been that. I don't know. I can't be 100% sure that's where we went. But And no, I mean, I think he wanted this. I think more than anything else, Ron didn't know that I could really dance. I mean, he probably thought. I think when he was talking about loosen up, he thought I was kind of like this
stiff, starch.
He thought I was the stereotypical British person who was very kind of controlled and very and a little bit. Yeah, well, there's another uptight. We just said a little uptight.
Yeah.
And I, of course, that might have been the demeanor I was presenting, but it really was not who I was.
So tell me something. When the beat hit you, then, and you were on the dance floor.
Oh man,
game over.
No, come on now. When these tunes that we're playing now
then.
in the oh yes. No, I probably wasn't as adept as I became.
Okay.
But don't put. Listen, I have been known to have people be stopped in their tracks when they saw me on the dance floor. They're like, "Oh no, he didn't." Can I go fast forward a millions of years to tell you one of the most famous moments, most precious moments of my whole life?
Do it.
Ever. Was the dear Miss Aretha, as I mentioned Aretha before. She came to Los Angeles for the first time in many years in the it would have been the, I think it would be the it would be the early 2000s.
Yeah.
She got the bus because she didn't fly anymore, came out to LA, and we could look up the exact year, and she did...
bus? Like a Greyhound?
No, her own coach.
Oh, she had staff.
Hello?
Sorry.
You didn't think Aretha Franklin got on a Greyhound in the 20... Hello? It was called the Queen of Soul Bus.
Are you serious?
Yes.
The Queen of Soul Bus?
Yes.
Excellent.
Had a bed in it and the kitchens and everything. I mean, because she didn't fly, which was well known. She used to fly. She stopped, she used to fly to England. She came to England, all kinds of things. And she stopped flying in 1983 because she had a very bad experience of a flight in a small plane that went upside down in a storm. And that was enough. She couldn't do it.
I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be enough for anyone, I think. Anyway, so she comes out to LA and I went to the show, and then she invited me and the person I went with my friend Nick. We went to the private after party
of
Aretha's private after party she had an after party after she did the show. She had a party, at a Beverly Hills hotel. That was only for invited guests. It wasn't for record companies and all that people. It was just invited guests, and I was one of the invited guests. Yes. Me and Miss Aretha, we really were. We had spent many years conversations together over this time, over the years. And anyway, and she had her own band, not her band, but she had a band of musicians there. And they had some DJ and everything. And two things. I want to tell. I'm just going to get into the dancing part because the other part is for another time to talk about the conversation I had with her one-on-one, which is one of the most...
Oh, you got to tell us that, man.
Now?
Well, finish the boogie first. And,
yeah. So anyway, here we are, and the music's on, and so I think, I'm not going to sit there. I am not going to sit there when the music's on like that. I am not. When the rhythm hits and the boogie hits, you got to go with it, man.
All right.
So I turn around to Nick. Now you have to know this is a private part. This is Aretha's party, but I was brave. I said, "Hey Nick, come on, let's boogie."
Who's Nick?
Nick, my friend Nick, that was with me as my guest at
All right.
Aretha.
Okay.
He was one of my good. He's still a good friend of mine, Nick.
Nice.
Yeah, man, we were friends. I mean, not any other friends, but we were friends.
Yeah.
So here we are, Nick and I at the party. They're playing something, and I said, "Come on, Nick, let's do this. Let's dance." Yeah, just dance. And Aretha's band members were there, and her cousin Brenda, and the background singers, and they were go on. And Aretha Franklin came out. She was watching, and she came out onto the dance floor too. And she said to me, "All right, David, I see you know how." She said, "You cutting up in here. You cutting up in here.
You're cutting the rug. Sorry, guys. So cutting the rug is when you're tearing up the dance floor or somebody's front room.
I had moves. All
right.
I didn't just. And then sometimes Nick stopped dancing a little bit. I'd dance by myself. I don't care because I could listen.
All right.
Don't put on certain tunes, even at this late stage. I will
still kick it. All right, good.
Yes,
good for you.
Yes.
Good for you.
Then I'll put anything on now while we're in the studio. I might jump up.
Okay, steady on. Let's because the headphones can't. You'll mash up the lead and everything like that. Just bite-sized chunks.
But anyway, so that's it. So yes, so yes. The answer to so Ron going back to 1975.
Yep.
Ron Simmons found out that he had an illusory perception of British people.
Yes.
Or we should say British people with a lighter shade of
white folk.
Lighter shade of pale people. In spite of my dashiki in my hair, he wasn't quite sure until he took me to that club and I danced. He said, I wasn't tearing up quite so much then as I would be later in years.
Yeah.
Because over time, I got to find my real rhythm.
So tell me, if you can, what was this conversation you had with Aretha then? That's
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting thing. I mean, as I said, I'd done many interviews with her over time, and she had really developed more of a personal rapport.
Nice.
And at some point early on in the party, before I was cutting up, she was sitting by herself for a moment, which is, it was her party, but she was sitting at the table by herself for a moment. I thought, I'm going to take this opportunity to go over and speak to her. So I went and sat down, and I eyeballed her. Like, I looked her straight in the eyes. Not straight. No, in other words, I looked her.
Genuine conversation.
Yeah, I looked into her eyes. Not like that's the wrong way of saying it. I just looked at her and said, I want to say something. I want to tell you. I want to thank you so much for all the interviews you've given me the opportunity to do with you. I said you have been, in many ways, the person who gave me the opened the doors for me to be able to do my first cover story for Blues and Soul in 1970, do my first story for the USA Today in America, my first Billboard story. I mean, these are all because of Aretha and her willingness to speak with me. And she wasn't known as someone who would do interviews with everybody. It was really very challenging for most journalists to get an interview with her because she had a distrust of journalists. Yeah. From things that had happened to her in the past when she first began becoming popular. So anyway, I thanked her. I said, I just really want to thank you so much. And she started to tear up a little bit. But see, a lot of people don't understand when you're in front of millions of people, thousands of people at a time, that's a different experience of being one-on-one with someone.
Yeah. And being famous can be lonely as well in some cases.
I wasn't so much that. I think she just wasn't used to anyone. Genuinely. Fans would comment to how much they made a difference for her. And there's nothing wrong with that. But someone who she knew was like really acknowledging her. And I said, I really want to acknowledge you. Really, I really want to thank you. And she started to, I could see she got a little misty-eyed.
Yeah.
And they said, well, thank you, David. And she said, I want to thank you. Because thank you for all the interviews you've done with me and all the things you've done to be a part of my career. Wow. And so that was it.
That's nice.
So it was a moment, and it was very precious to me. Nice. Very precious. I still can see it.
That's great, man. Well, look, let's move on to our next tune.
Which is?
Well, according to my record, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's The Way of the World by Earth, Wind & Fire. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
Should we drop it? So that's The Way of the World by Earth, Wind & Fire. That's a tune and a half.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Talk to me about that tune, man. Why were you feeling that one?
Well, as part of my, being in New York and getting myself kind of grounded in being there, going to the press parties, the concerts and so forth, one of the most amazing experiences of my life was going to see Earth, Wind & Fire at Madison Square Garden. And this is a time when That's the Way of the World, which was really their big breakthrough album in terms of mainstream success in America, that was just taken off. And sitting in Madison Square Garden with all of these lighters, everyone lighting up the whole, and Madison Square Garden's a big place. I mean, massive. And then this is a time when they were doing these different things on the stage. It wasn't just a show where I think Verdine was levitating.
Yeah.
I mean, the drum set went. I mean, it's all kinds of these things, and it was like it was a spectacle.
Yeah, it's theatrics as well.
Yeah, along with the music. So that concert just was an incredible experience for me, and let me know that that this is really where I want to be. This is where I wanted to be, living in New York and living in America.
Yeah. Now, I'm just checking before I get myself in any trouble. That Breakthrough album, what hits did that have on it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the title track was one, but the other songs on there were Reasons.
Yeah.
What else is on that? That's Where the World.
And I'm thinking, here we go.
Do you know,
Shining Star.
Yes.
Reasons, See the Lights.
That's
nice.
But it was really like, I think for many people it was the album, because it was really the whole concept of it, and then the song I loved on there. I love the song called All About Love, which has a lot of speaking in it. Maurice White speaking, and it's just it's like he's almost like he's preaching, and I love that, man. It's really a great, one of the things I used to love in that. So he says, "Have mercy."
You got a churchy. But what, I remember in the last podcast you said that you went to LA because you were going to take a flight back with them, and you interviewed them on the plane. Is that right?
Yeah, but that was after that happened after I saw them
at Madison Square
Garden.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they were just like touring stadiums, and they were really. And of course, some of the shows with Ramsey Lewis was a special guest, because he had this recording called Sun Goddess, which Maurice Whitehead
7-inch of that. Of course.
Had produced. And in fact, I remember seeing them also at another show, apart from Madison Square Garden, within the same time period, at a place called Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah.
Again, that was...
Is that out in Long Island?
Yes, and it was... Yes, exactly. That one did not have... that had Ramsey Lewis on it. The Madison Square Garden was not with Ramsey Lewis.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was something. And I remember the funny thing is, just a little quick story to show you what happens, part of the adventures. So we're going out to Nassau Coliseum, and the record company, CBS Records, had gotten a little coach to take all the press out to the show, and it's about an hour and a half outside of New York. And we were probably about 30 minutes away from the venue, and the bus broke down. And the bus driver was frantically trying to get a replacement bus for all these grumpy press people. Of course, I wasn't grumpy, naturally.
No.
I was a beacon of sunshine and light. Howsoever, they said,
you weren't a diva at all, were you?
I've never been a diva. Let me write that down. Song title, poem, tune, whatever. I have moments. I have moments of diva.
We have.
But I've never been one.
Perfect.
And trust me, I know the difference.
Yes.
Anyway, so they said, well, we still have to see the show. The CBS publicists, they're all going crazy. What are we going to do? Blah, 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 blah. So we had to walk. We literally had to walk through all the mucky field. It was not. We had to walk through mud and shit. Oh, sorry, mud. Excuse me. Expletive.
Aggregates.
We had to sleep through. Let me start that again.
Yes.
We had to walk through the mud and stuff to get to the Nassau Coliseum, because they couldn't get a bus in time, to replace the one that broke down. And if you want to see some grumpy press people. The bus broke down, and then we see Ramsey Lewis and Earth, Wind and Fire, and all is forgotten.
Excellent.
And all is forgiven.
Good show.
And, oh man, come on now. Yes, it was absolutely worth it. I mean, they just, for me, really, those Earth, Wind and Fire shows were the best I ever saw. They're
proper musicians, aren't they? Musicianship.
Just the way they put those shows together so that it wasn't just music.
Yeah.
The magic tricks and the disappearing, they would disappear. They would be in these kind of like what were they called? Oh,
cabins.
like or mummy cases.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
And then they would. You saw them go in, and they weren't there, and then they come in from the other part of the stadium. I mean, come on, like what?
Love it, love it.
What? I mean, of course, it was all designed that way,
Yeah.
but just brilliant. Best value for money ever. Earth, Wind and Fire shows, yes, back in the day.
I remember I saw something on YouTube where things like Boogie Wonderland, they're tuning the timpanis. Everything is spot on.
Yeah.
In terms of musicality and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Maurice playing the kalimba. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing. It's just magic. It was magic, man. Just magic.
Are they one of your favourites?
Absolutely.
Groups ever?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree
In
with me
fact,
too.
if anyone asked me who's my favourite group, I would have to say it's Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Number one, who's your favourite group?
Earth, Wind and Fire.
Who's your favourite female vocalist?
Aretha Franklin.
Who's your favourite female group? Under pressure, guys. He's under pressure. Love it.
Favourite.
It's all right.
I don't have one.
Come on, just throw something out there.
The Emotions.
Okay. Who's your favourite male solo artist?
Whoa. Favorite male. Wow. Probably Peebo Bryson. No. Hello, Luther Vandross. Hello.
Okay.
Sorry
And
about that.
favourite producer?
Tom Bell and Maurice White.
Wow.
Both. Separately, of course.
And your favourite person, not favourite person, but
Me. Oh, sorry.
yeah, your favourite person who you've interviewed that you've met in person, the person you had the most fun with or that you were wowed by.
Aretha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
And last one for you. What's your favourite song of all time?
Walk On By.
Nice one. See, it wasn't that bad.
No.
See, that was
I'll
good.
probably go back and revise some of it later.
No, look, we're not going to hold you to them, but it's just nice to know.
No, it's just off the top.
Yeah, and what's good about that, people who have never been introduced to soul music or from that era can start off from those places and branch out. And
you didn't ask me, which is an interesting thing, who's my favourite songwriter?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, 'cause I did ask you your favourite producer was. Who's your favourite songwriter?
Stevie Wonder.
Wow. Let's get you to Face the Music, and this one's by the Dynamic Superiors.
Yes.
That's what this one's about.
Yes. Dynamic Superiors. Well, here I am in London, in New York, I said, doing interviews with everybody.
Yeah.
And one of the interviews I was asked to do was with the Dynamic Superiors, a group based in Washington, D.C., who had the distinction of having a at that time, very out gay lead singer.
Wow.
Which is almost unheard of. You've got to remember, this is a black group. This is not like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what year is this?
1975.
So is this pre or during Sylvester time?
Pre.
Wow.
And the Dynamic Superiors were on Motown.
Yep.
And they had the first album they did was produced by Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson.
Yep.
And they had a big hit on there called Shoo Shoo Shine. Yeah, but that wasn't the one that's one of the songs the main songs on there, but the one I loved was a song called Face the Music.
Right.
But that was, man, and so I met, here's the story, a real quick story. So I was assignment to interview Dynamic Superiors, and we did the interview in my apartment, studio apartment, when I was living in the Westerly building.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough chairs. There's 5 of them, and I only had like 3 chairs.
Yeah.
So 2 of them had to stand up. It was funny.
Well, now, is this still handwritten or are you recording now?
That's still everything. I did not start recording interviews till very, very much later. And part of it was strategic.
Right.
Because I discovered that many people, when they saw a tape recorder, would immediately clam up. They would not.
Yeah.
Because they were afraid that, it's on tape. How are you going to say the person didn't say it? So by taking notes, I was able to do that. And I could read my own handwriting back then. Not sure I could read it now.
Yeah, same, man.
Yeah, so Dynamic Superiors, man, so hard to face the music when you're You have to play it so
Let's
I
play
can
it.
remember the next line.
That's Face the Music by the Dynamic Spirits. Whoa, I haven't heard that before. That is fierce.
See, I keep
Damn.
bringing you this music, man.
You be bringing the gravy, boy. I'm going to have to
Yes.
drop that in my sets. That's
Yes,
nice.
come on now. Yes. So I can say.
We're not excited much, are we?
No. What I was going to say is that, I mean, that album is a classic. It
Yeah.
really is, and it just to show you how life works, man. It's an amazing thing to say to you about this. When I started to do the reissues I do in Britain through my Soul Music Records label, Plug,
Yeah.
and started working with Cherry Red, which is the company that really is responsible for doing all the work on having these albums reissued. Yeah, my label goes through Cherry Red,
Yep.
and what the second, I think it was the second or third release that we had on Soul Music Records was combining the first two albums by the Dynamic Superiors,
Yep.
the self-titled Dynamic Superiors, and the second album, which is called Pure Pleasure.
Yeah.
And the Pure Pleasure album has a picture of, you should just see the picture because it's got painted fingernails.
Of course.
I think of the lead singer in a top. Well, you can look at, you can go find the cover.
Yeah.
But the point being, those are great albums.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the Soul Music Records reissue label, and it did. Because they'd never been out before, the records had never been out on CD. That kind of, we could say that was like a marker to say, yeah, we're here, and
Nice.
Soul Music Records is here, and we're going to give you the people what they want. And
Respect
we're
to
still
Summers.
doing it.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's good.
yes,
Respect to Summers for that.
Yes.
Now, about that song, Face the Music, it's had that early disco beat there.
That's
that
right,
fall to the
that's
floor.
right, that's
The
right.
hi-hat.
Yeah.
So we had that beat going on there. Is that all that preceded, like Love Hangover and all those
Yeah,
sorts of
yeah.
things,
Well, there's other things. See, one thing is some of you said that because I was thinking that a lot of times people don't give credit to Motown
Yep.
for what they were doing back then. So it doesn't just start with, I mean, Love Hangover is certainly the other one.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to
By Diana Ross.
if you had to name one of my favorite groove, I mean, dance records of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, if that comes on, don't ask me to sit still. I can't. And I think that recording is one of the best
It's crisp, isn't it?
produced records of all time.
Yeah, it's good quality. It
You know,
is
really.
nice.
So you've got Love Hangover, and you've also got, people forget sometimes, the Eddie Kendricks, Girl, You Need a Change
Your
of Mind.
Mind.
That's People Hold On. I think that's 1973.
Yep.
So Motown, while people think of it, Motown a lot of times of the 60s, you know, the Supremes, Martha and Vandellas, Marvin Gaye, Mary Wells, Temptations, Four Tops, all of those were the foundation for Motown.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say that they really did move into being some of the most progressive
And funky.
artists and production
Yeah.
for the era that we call disco.
Yeah.
I mean, just right there, Girl, You Need a Change of Mind. That was one of the tunes, by the way, when in New York clubs, when I first started going to clubs, if they put that on, It was crazy.
Yeah,
Because it's about a 7 or 8 minute song.
Was Carl Bean on Motown?
Yes. Another pioneer.
Yep.
So here you've got this whole period of time of Motown as not just a hit, of course, with Stevie and Marvin and all that people still there recording, but also they were really I think Motown's not given enough credit for its part in the dance music movement. And yes, Carl Bean, I Was Born This Way. Come on, that's historic. Yeah. Really? So you've got all that going on. So I love that stuff, man. I loved all the I could have done we could have done a whole show on Eddie Kendricks, Diana Ross. All of those. I mean,
he's invited himself back, ladies and gentlemen, and I like it.
Well, I already invited myself back. I told you we're going to do part 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10 to get sick of. They won't ever get sick of us.
Carl Bean, that's one of my favourite songs ever.
Is
it's a gay anthem. The strings. It's really emotional thing. That just got to me, and I heard it loads of times before, but I didn't know what it was, and I parked it and I revisited it much later in my life. Yeah, and it had more of a significant feeling towards it, towards me, impact on me.
Yeah, you Carl.
Born This Way, Carl Bean people.
Yeah, and the thing is, this really also, I love it when you see how everything fits together in a sense. So,
did that song have an effect on you at the time it came out?
Well, no, because I was never out. I was never.
Yeah, but in terms of how you felt, how you felt about yourself.
Well, actually, yes, and also to say that he wasn't the first person to record it. It was recorded by another guy before him called Valentino, and it was it was a smaller hit on a little label called. I don't know how they pronounce it. The label was GAIEE Records. GAIEE. Gay Records. Okay. I suppose that was the name of the label. Mm-hmm. And it was by Valentino, and I did an interview with Valentino for that first version of it. But it wasn't a big hit with Valentino. Yeah. And then along comes Carl Bean and does it. And he recorded it in Philadelphia, by the way, with all those MFSB people.
The strings,
everything on there. So Carl has a hit with it, and he was the first openly gay solo artist on Motown, because I mentioned Dynamics of Beauty. Yeah. This guy was in the group. Yeah. Anyway, in the early 80s, probably like 84, 85, it's about 84, I think, it was reissued in England. And I, at the time, was writing for I Was Born This Way, was reissued in England. Yeah. Because it came out in 77. And it was reissued in England. And I believe I was writing I was either writing for Blues and Soul, or it might have been a time when I was writing for another magazine called Street Scene. Yep. And I did an article on Carl Bean. I found him. I didn't know where he was. He was in LA, and he had started an outreach called the Minority AIDS Project. Right. As part of a church he had also started. I think the church was an outreach of the project. One of which way around it was. Mm-hmm. And the church was called Unity Fellowship Church. And it was a non-denominational church, in a sense, as much as it wasn't like...
It was free.
It wasn't Baptist, or it wasn't,
non-denomination.
Yeah. And he was the preacher. And Carl and so many things came out of that, because he did this. He used to do these benefit concerts called Coming Home for Friends with Dion, Whitney Houston. All these people used to come to perform at these concerts.
Didn't know that.
And guess who was part of the choir singing on those Coming Home for Friends events? Yes, it was me, amongst the many other choir members, of course. But I was, so really, that at some point is a part of my history that I really want to talk about, because it was a very important part of my history and his history. Yeah. And Carl was just such an outstanding pioneer. He really was, and thankfully, he passed away, I think, a couple of years ago now. Yeah. But thankfully, he's been remembered in as much as there's a street in Los Angeles named after him, right? Which is great, and he's still, for those who've known the contribution he's made, he was just an outstanding pioneer. And for those who may not know but can kind of figure it out, Lady Gaga, Born This Way, right, was inspired by Carl Bean's I Was Born This Way. And I don't know if she met him, but she certainly she has acknowledged finally that was the inspiration for her Born This Way.
Wow. There you go.
See, man, you never know how it's going to turn out, do you?
Oh, that's good.
So there we go.
So look, finally, oh God, there we go again, end of the show again. But a last song, and I know you love The Sunshine a lot because you commute between here and LA.
I did, yes, I have.
You
yes,
do.
I do. I do.
This song's always been big for me. Now, this song...
Why? Can you tell me why it's been big for you?
I might do that, I think, yeah.
Come on now.
This song's been... So when the rare groove genre came out, so there's a genre called rare groove. It could be like funky B-sides of songs. There could be album tracks that people have picked out.
Yes.
Now, what fell into those things? Because Roy Ayers was big, but he also fell into the rare groove, which brought him out again. It has a resurgence in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And I always loved Roy Ayers anyway, but when this song came out, it was like hypnotic. The way it was recorded, how the strings were recorded. The song sounds warm. It sounds like summer, even if in the bleakest of midwinter. And the song always puts a smile on my face. It's very simple, it's hypnotic, and you can just chill and you can sleep with it, you can eat with it, you can just do so many things with it, and it just makes me smile. It just makes me warm up, you know. You can do lots of things with it, David. I can bring your eyebrows back down to sea level. Thank you very much, sir.
God, the eyebrows go up. You can't bring it back down again. Hey.
And Roy Ayers is just amazing. And this song's so clever, but simple, but inspirational and lovely, and it's liked by millions and multi-generations. So that's what that song does for me. How about you?
Well, for me, that song embodies the time that I was in that first year in New York.
Yeah.
And of course, it was coming out in the summer.
Yeah.
So it was just really, and that first summer in New York, man, it was hot.
Yeah, man, the New York summers, man.
Central Park,
Washington Square.
I mean, come on, it was just like, it wasn't like a London summer,
no,
shall
it's
we
not,
say.
it's
And
not.
it just, the freedom and the kind of a sense of, it was just, it captivated the whole mood and how I felt. And so whenever I hear that song, I go right back to those first months in New York. Yeah, I'm discovering life. It's opening up whole. Yeah, I'm going to, as I mentioned to you before, about going to the church and discovering what that was, and just my life was not, that year, 1975, was not like any other year in my life.
Yep.
And so Everybody Loves the Sunshine really captured how I felt, and just the kind of free, I'm going to get this lyric wrong. Bees and things and flowers.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
Bees and things and flowers, man. I mean, yeah. And I know you're about to play it.
Yes,
and it just so like, it's my 1975
Listen, my first summer in New York, it was 1987 or 1988.
All right.
In Brooklyn, and I remember going to Prospect Park.
Yes, Prospect Park.
Do you know what I'm saying? And
Brooklyn Parkway, all of that. Eastern Parkway.
Exactly, Eastern Parkway, Kings Highway. Big up to everybody in Flatbush. I mean, I met my extended family. They were all welcoming, and I became 18. I became an adult then.
Wow.
And it's like, became an adult there in New York, being a gay man, even though I wasn't practicing it at that point, but it was just a version, it was just a landmark.
Yes.
And New York summers are like, they're brutal, but they're amazing at the same time, in terms of heat, intensity, and humidity. But this song will just encapsulate that. So,
all right then.
Before we play that, look, again, David, thank you for your stories, your facts, your knowledge, your inspiration. And yes, it will be probably episode 9, 10, and 11 going on in the future. But listen, we're finding it really, really interesting. Thanks for your time again. And I will invite you back. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Don't apologize.
I don't mean that.
Just send me a check.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll speak to you soon.
All right now.
My life in the sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine.
sunshine. Sunshine. Folks get down in the sunshine. Sunshine. Yeah. Folks get brown in the sunshine.